All right, good morning, everybody. All right, so this next topic that we have, it's still part of Learning Target 4. It's our last part before our test. It's about inverse functions. Actually, I put inverse operations. It's inverse functions. So what it looks like is basically on the test, it'll look like these three types of problems. We have find the inverse of each function, and then it's going to look like this. G of n equals n plus 4, and the answer will be this. The g, and then you got that little -1 in the exponent. It's not really an exponent. It literally means g, the inverse function of g of n, is n minus 4. That's how you'd read it. The -1 in the exponent, it's not really an exponent. It just it means inverse. So, and whenever you see g like that, it means the inverse function of g. Okay, it's just notation. All right, so same thing over here. It says prove if the following are inverses. In this case, it's no. We're going to find out how to do that. So basically, today is this, tomorrow is this, and the next day is this. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, I'm not sure how we're going to get the test in. I might do both of these tomorrow, because I'm going to actually talk about this one today anyway. All right, so let's go. First thing we have to know is what the heck is an inverse function? So an inverse, before we get to inverse functions, let's get to inverses. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations. Of course, multiplication and division are inverse operations. The square root and the square are inverse operations. So they're kind of opposites of each other. So the definition of an inverse function are functions that are the reverse of each other, or they reverse each other. So let me show you a little something from Desmos. So what if I were to graph y equals x plus 3? So y, this isn't easy. Oh, silly. This thing's blocking it. Of course. There we go. So back up. Back up. All right, so y equals x plus 3. All right, so that's the graph of y equals x plus 3. If I were to have made a table, which looks like this, if I plug in 0 into x plus 3, so y equals 0 plus 3, is 3. So that's the table of the function of that line if we were to graph the line. And that's why we spent so much time learning how to graph a line. All right, so that's one graph. Now, I want to compare that to the function y equals, and I believe it's x minus 3. X minus 3. All right, that's what the graph looks like of that, and that's the table of that one. Now, if to mean they're opposites of each other, or they're, what was the wording of it? They reverse each other. So let's take a look at this one right here. So if I look at, I'm going to change this color. If I look at this function and I look at my x, where an x is -1, my y is 2. So if I look at this function now and I look at x is 2, I get -1. They are opposites of each other. The x's become the y's and the y's become the x's. Let's just double check, see it again. Do I have another one? I don't have. I have one. Oh yeah, I do. So if I look at this one, -2 and 1. So in this case, in the yellow one, the x minus 3 function, I want to look for when x is 1. And x is 1 here. And according to this function, when y is 1, x is -2. So over here, I should get -2. They're opposites of each other. The x's and the y's are different. So when I have a graph of that, notice that this is this one here, and this one is this one here. When we have a graph of these functions that are inverses of each other, what they're going to look like, the important part, is they do this thing where there are two big things I want you to notice. They are mirror images of over the line y equals x. So this is the line y equals x. So if I were to graph y equals x, every time I plug in a number, this y is the same number as that. 1 and 1, 2 and 2, -3, -3. And then I were to graph that, I get this line right here. Okay, so that's the line y equals x. So in order for them to be inverse functions of each other, if you were to graph both functions, they're going to mirror. So check this out. So they're symmetric. So notice this over here. I'm going to do it in the same color. We got 0. Well, there's another point on the other graph where this part is 0. And this is 3, but the x is 3. Same thing over here. You've got -1, 2, 2, -1. They are opposites of each other. So what it's going to look like is they're going to mirror each other on the opposite side of y equals x. Okay. So just remember, every x, y has a y, x partner. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the inverse of this function. So these are the notes over on the right. I will give you a printout. Well, I'm not going to print them out. But basically attached to this assignment, I'm going to also put some really good notes that, I got rid of them, look like inverse like this. So basically you don't have to take notes because there they are. Okay, so let's go back to here. So step 1, stick a y in for the f of x guy. So basically this is your f of x guy. So instead of putting that, we're going to put y equals n plus 4. Step 1, done. Step 2, switch the x and y, because every x, y has a y, x partner. So we're going to replace this and this. So we're going to go n, this now becomes n, this now becomes y. Step 2. Step 3, solve for y. So that means we want this back over there, but not just by switching them. We're going to, let's see, what if I put, what if, because if I subtracted y, I'm going to get a negative y and then divide by, what if I just make it so that this stays on this side and I get rid of the 4? I'll do it both ways just so. All right, so if I subtract 4, well, this becomes n minus 4 equals y, and then I can just rearrange it so it says y equals n minus 4. But I want to find the inverse, so I'm going to do the notation. So it's going to be g inverse of n equals inverse n minus 4. So we go back and we replace it. Okay? The other way I could have done it is we could have said subtract y from both sides. So if I do that, n equals y plus 4. Subtract y from both sides, I get negative y plus n equals 4. Subtract n from both sides, I get negative y equals negative n plus 4. Divide by negative 1, divide everything by negative 1, I get y equals, this becomes n, this becomes minus 4. So you get the same thing, but I find the one on the left. All right, so now you're going to try it. What did I do with the problem? There it is. All right, so negative 3n minus 1. So what was it? F of n. F of n equals negative 3 minus negative 3n minus 1. All right, so pause the video and give that a shot. Okay, so I'm going to assume you paused the video and you either got an answer like that or close to that. Another answer you could have gotten would be negative n over 3 minus 1/3. Means the same thing. So give yourself a pat on the back, or let's find out where you had trouble. So here we go. Step 1, replace this with a y. Exchange that one and that one, not the negative 3. So you get n equals negative 3y minus 1, step 2. And step 3, solve for y. So I want to get the y on the left-hand side. That means I need to isolate all of that, which means I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And then I'm going to divide, by negative 3. And I've got n plus 1 over negative 3. But I can't have, they don't like negative in the denominator. So I'm going to apply it up here, but the whole thing, not just the n. So it becomes negative n minus 1 over 3 equals y. And then we could just switch them so it's this way instead of, and then of course we want to change it so it's f, the inverse of f equals negative n minus 1 over 3. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So you're going to do the same thing. This is your homework. IXL didn't really have anything the way I wanted it. So there's another example there you can take a look at also. So if you don't like the notes, there's one more. So your homework or your work on your own is going to be this page here, which if you look at it is page 91. Do A. All right, I'm going to ask you to try and do C and D, but I know these are going to be a little bit difficult, so make sure you ask questions. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another video at the end with the explanation of it. But give it your best shot, find out where you made a mistake, everything like that, okay? Also,